In the 90s, scientists conducted a groundbreaking experiment to better understand dopamine and the reward system. They put a monkey inside a cage, and they put with that monkey a button, a green light or a light, and a reward system to deliver rewards. So he was playing with the button there, and whenever he touched the button with the green light on, he will get a sip of juice. At first, he was not aware of that. And with time, when he keeps pushing the same button and cannot get the reward, he can observe that whenever the green light is there, he touches the button, he will get the sip. So at first, the reward was the sweet treat. So it came as a surprise, causing a surge of dopamine in the monkey's brain, and that's normal because he's enjoying it. But as the monkey started to learn to associate the green light with pushing the button, something fascinating happened. Dopamine level begins to spike, but not on the sip of juice, but when he sees the green light. So the brain had learned to predict that whenever there is a green light, there is a reward coming with it. So the spike of dopamine started one step before enjoying the actual reward. It was released here by anticipation. And also it reminds you of addiction. Dopamine is more than just the feel-good chemical, like we said in the last episode. It's the brain way of predicting rewards and reinforcing behavior. So, surely we feel rewarded when we have something pleasurable, but the dopamine will go one step backward just to predict that and reinforce behavior. It will push you toward that behavior by going a step backwards. In the monkey experiment, the green light becomes the cue. It's not like the green light is satisfying or pleasurable for itself, but it signals a reward that was coming. Over time, the brain will strengthen this association between the cue and the reward, and the release in the dopamine response to expectation rather than the actual reward. This is how our brain learns. So the dopamine will strengthen the connection between the stimuli, like in the case of the monkey, the green light, and the rewarding behavior, creating a pattern that drive our decision and habit not to reward itself, but the cue before the reward. So now what are the three changes? We are talking about hijacking this system, which is the VTA, the nucleus accumbens, and the prefrontal cortex. How it will be hijacked? Three ways. If that we have three structures, then three ways will be hijacking the brain to make it slave of this addiction. So the first hijack tech of the drug is strengthening cues and association, like we've seen with the monkey. So the human brain learns to associate certain cues with drugs. So for someone with an addiction, these cues can be anything. So it can be a place where he had that first time the drug, or where he usually have it. It could be a person that he spends time with it during using that drug. It can be even music, feeling, or anything else. When the brain recognizes these triggers or these cues, like we said, it goes backward, then it will release dopamine before even he had the substance or the drug, in anticipation to the drug, which will create the craving. So we don't need dopamine, or dopamine is no longer released for the drug, stay backward, again, creating what we call craving. So by strengthening this synaptic connection that link the drug feeling or the pleasure and the reward, while at the same time weakening the connection to natural rewards, like food or social interaction, like we've said. So your brain wants that high level, again, of dopamine. He wants that because he thinks that's what will make you survive. The second way the brain will be hijacked by the drug is the system or the pathway of reward will become numb. Over time, addicts require more and more to feel the same effect, and eventually they need the drug just to feel normal. If they feel depleted from dopamine, they will just need the drug to keep the dopamine level at the normal levels. This numbing also affects everyday pleasure, making them feel less rewarding again, leaving the drug as the primary source of pleasure and feeling normal. So this is why people describe they are flat, empty when they are not using. How does this happen? So the body maintains an internal balance through something we call homeostasis. So when you feel hot, your body will release sweat that will cool you down and keep the temperature at a lower level. Same thing with the addiction. So when the nucleus accumbens is repeatedly overstimulated, the brain responds by producing CREP, a substance that will trigger the dynorphin or the secretion of the dynorphin. The dynorphin is the molecule that reduces the stimulation of the nucleus accumbens. So even if you have high levels of dopamine released by the drug from the VTA, the nucleus accumbens level of trigger or stimulation has went way down to keep it to the normal's level. So this will require more and more of the drug to achieve the same effect. And with time, it will take to a situation where the drug will be just needed to feel normal. This is known as the numbing of the pleasure response, and this is the second change that happened with addiction. In a drug addict who is repeatedly overstimulated this nucleus accumbens with his or her drug of choice, the dynorphin will keep turning down the stimulation, and over time the addict will feel less and less pleasurable until he only craves that one to feel normal or to relieve himself from the withdrawal symptoms. The third major change in the brain of addiction involves reduced self-control. This change happens in the prefrontal cortex. This area is responsible for decision making and mostly in inhibition of undesirable behavior. So look at it as the brakes in the system. So when you don't have brakes, your brain will go full speed toward that addiction or toward that reward caused by the drug. So while the reward circuit drives primitive urges, the prefrontal cortex usually helps consider consequences and think about the future and then exert self-control. Drug addicts, unfortunately, they exhibit many of the same cognitive impairment that patients with damage of the prefrontal cortex will exhibit. For example, they perform poorly on tasks that of working memory and also decision making, as well as one task that requires sustained attention, so they cannot focus for a long time. So chronic drug users have been found to exhibit the same cognitive impairment as those who have damage or physical damage in their prefrontal cortex. Impaired decision making, it's poor decision making. Individuals find it harder to weigh the negative effect or the negative consequences of the drug. So they are aware they are harming themselves, but they cannot do anything. Reduce impulse control. So normally in acts, like we said, like it's a break, helping us to resist short-term reward in favor of long-term benefit. But in addict brain, it's no longer working. They engage at full speed toward this addiction behavior. Also, the prefrontal cortex neurons, like we said, the same as in damaged people, they become misshapen and less functional. The dendrites, which are the final part of each neuron cells and communicate with the body cell of the other neurons. So these dendrites are the branches that receive the signals, transmit the signal, and receive the signals, become altered, impairing communication. So they are no longer function normally or no longer have the same level of excitation. This weakening of the neural connection means that the brain ability to regulate behavior is compromised. So this is how drugs will hijack the reward system or the brain. They will not only change the function of this three brain structure of the reward system, but also they will change their structure. So the drug will be the only way to survive the withdrawal symptoms, or the only way or the only thing to crave by the brain. But there is always hope. But before that, we will see in the next episode some examples of drug of abuse and how these psychoactive drugs affect the brain and how each of them has different area to impact or different area to a different method to impact the brain and hijacking it, unfortunately. See you in the next episode.